The Preserver and Sam walked in their protective suits on the outer shell of Twain. Several thousand peoples inside were watching on monitors, body displays, and from the atrium. Orbit watched via the multitude of box spiders already distributed in the area. The two slowly walked up to the twisting structure rising out from the alloyed hull. Sam put his hand out and touched the hexagonal checkered wall. He rubbed its surface, and a light dust flicked off, only to be drawn back into place. "That's weird. How's it doing that?" The Preserver focused on him. "Unknown. Capture a sample for analysis. You have bottles on you." Sam breathed slowly out his nose into his helmet. "Yes, good idea, Mr. Preserver. I will take a sample." Sam brushed off more of the dust and caught it in the bottle before it could be drawn back into place. The dust tried to climb out of the bottle until he put on the lid, and then it went still. "That's some weird shit." The Preserver refocused all three eyes on the Star Angel's nest. There were several large openings, and he started toward the nearest one. Sam followed his lead. They slowly and deliberately walked forward, each step planned so as to not accidentally fling themselves out into the void. They neared the slip-shaped opening, and the Preserver paused, putting up two of his hands to stop Sam. Sam stopped, looking at the opening. A glowing tendril extended out, followed by the glowing outer sheath of an angel. Sam watched as it flowed out from the hole and into space. "You get all that, Orbit?" "Yes, sir." "Did you see the central core of the creature?" "Yes, a big lump of something and some organs. I don't know. It looked like light pulses were coming out of it." "Exactly, sir. The energy recordings I've taken show they are generating huge sums of power and use it quite efficiently." "They are power plants, then?" Sam asked. "Some sort of fusion is happening inside of them." "Yes, sir." Sam looked at the Preserver. "How is that possible without them detonating? They're animals, right, or are they some sort of machine AI things?" The Preserver focused one eye on Sam, the other two at the opening. "We will be inside in a moment. We both have bottles. We will get samples and find out Sam." "Sir, they speak to one another on sheath frequencies. It is all crude, basic communications. Feelings, body states, animal drives. They appear to lack higher thought processes. I do not think they are machine-based," Orbit said. Sam nodded and watched the hole. "It clear?" The Preserver waved twice and started into the structure. Sam followed. They walked through the slit in the side and wound upwards as the tunnel stretched. The walls shimmered as the dust moved under Sam's movements. "I think this whole thing is alive. You think there are metals that can do this naturally?" "You have some in bottles. We will find out once we start analysis," the Preserver replied. "You ass. You don't ever hypothesize?" "Yes, I hypothesize when I have some base data to start thoughts with. Without the data, it's not a hypothesis, but wild guesses." Sam was about to retort back, but they had reached the end of the tunnel and looked into the main nest chamber. Sam looked over the lip of the tunnel. Down below, 7 of the angels were tending to egg clusters laid directly on the station hull. Orbit spoke over the comms. "Please place your recorders on the nest wall to your right." Sam nodded and unhooked the box on his hip. He reached over and put it on the wall. 4 legs reached out and initiated tiny grav plates, securing it to the wall. The hexagonal dust shifted and embraced the footings. The Preserver slowly cantered down the wall toward the outermost egg. It was twice as tall as he was. He touched the outer shell, and it glittered in bright blues and pinks, tracing the outline of his tri-fingered hand. He scraped some of the eggshell dust into a bottle and capped it. The light from the scrape glowed, and then faded. The Preserver then took out a device and placed it on the egg. It emitted a thin beam of light and bored a minuscule hole into the shell. A dot of inner liquid shot out into the device's chamber and sealed it up. A bottle ejected out of the device, and the Preserver grabbed it. He looked around the egg. One of the parent creatures was busy 4 eggs over, turning an egg a quarter clockwise with its tendrils of translucent flesh and lights. The Preserver left the device there, keeping the tiny hole sealed, and started back up the wall. He reached the ledge, and Sam pulled him back into the tunnel. "You got it?" Sam asked. The Preserver bobbed. "Yes, this is a crowning achievement. Next season I am sure to have double the mates. I am very excited." Sam smiled. "The things we do for women." He patted him and started back down the tunnel. Sam stopped. Angel light down the hallway was getting brighter. He turned and looked at the preserver. "Hurry back out into the chamber." The preserver turned, but 2 of his 3 feet slipped, tripping him up and causing him to float backwards into Sam. The light behind them glowed brighter, and tendrils appeared around a curve. Sam watched, wide-eyed, as the angel approached. The creature floated through the tunnel, grasping into the dust. The dust formed holds, allowing it to grab and move rapidly through it. It stopped directly over Sam and the preserver. Bright white light flowed over the 2, followed by reds and yellows. 2 tendrils grew from its central bubble and wrapped around them. Shit, Sam started. "Are you being injured, sir?" Orbit asked into his ear speaker. "No, but what is it going to do?" The angel pulled them out through the tunnel, moving swiftly using the dust hooks. They reached the outer slip hole, and the angel exited out with fluidic speed. It zipped over the outer hull of Twain, reaching the edge, and entered into the busy interior. It drifted around several freighters and one of the large frame arms, still holding tight to the 2. Sam looked around. Large rectangular habitats zipped by. They spun around on his perceived vertical axis, and down towards a power core. It flipped on the horizontal and floated deftly across the outer wall of an SFP farm. The angel bobbed up and over the old ring and stopped abruptly next to the central core, right next to Sam's quarters. He looked in through his living room window, and then up into the lights of the Star Angel. The creature flickered colors over him and his habitat. It extended the tendrils holding them, and dropped the 2 off on the outer wall of Sam's home. A cascade of colors flowed over its inner living bubble, and then it departed back out toward the outer shell. Sam stood, stunned for a moment. The preserver checked his sample bottle. "Good. It did not take my sample. Mission so far has been a success." Sam raised his arm up and pointed at the tiny dot of light, slowly looking over at the preserver. "Holy fuck. How'd it know where to bring me? That was incredible. Holy fucking shit." The preserver stared at him with all 3 eyes. "Again, we have samples and Orbit has the entire event recorded. We shall go over the data and create a hypothesis." The preserver started toward an access port. "I find it amazing you humans can even operate a door, let alone create starships." Sam glared at him. "Fuck you, man. That was amazing. How are you not in awe of what just happened?" The preserver reached the port and activated the airlock sequence. "I've analyzed your genomes numerous times, and I still have yet to find why anger makes you want to mate with me. Quite a fascinating species. I am thankful for our cohabitation. Also, why are you so fixated on fecal material? Endless questions, piles of data, and I still have yet to form a solid theory." Sam took a breath and followed him into the airlock. The preserver shut the outer door behind him. The Goadur representative on Twain, Survivor, was hovering in his suit on the main promenade. He motioned to his subordinate and spoke through his comms. "Go on, that female there." The black armored subordinate gave a confirming hand sign and hovered over to the human. "Hello, human female, I have something for you." Gabriel turned around and brushed his long hair away from his face. "Excuse me?" The Goadur lifted up an intricate necklace of twining alloy wire with a crimson gem pendant. "Human females like jewelry. We wish to sell you some." Gabriel leaned over and looked at it. He then stood straight and stared at the alien. "Dude, I don't want your trinkets. Go peddle them somewhere else." "Whoa, hold up," said Amy. She walked over, smiling at Gabriel, and then looked at the Goadur. "I think you have some misconceptions." She pointed at her pixie cut. "Humans are particular about their genders, and while hair length is a good indicator for the majority, many of us wear our hair at lengths different from the norms." She extended her hand out for the necklace. "Mind if I hold it?" The Goadur extended his runic armored hand and offered her the necklace. Amy gently picked it up and ran her fingers over it. Tiny symbols glowed briefly from the friction. As she neared the pendant, the friction from her fingers caused it to emanate a red light. "Oh, wow. How does it do that?" The Goadur looked at her. "Do what?" "Glow like that. Standard thermal conduction metals coupled with resistor bands embedded between layers." She pointed at the tiny runes. "And what do these mean?" "That is my sister's name. The date she made it, where she made it, and the procedures used for its manufacture. She laughed. Well, they are pretty. I like it. How much do you want for it? The Goadur looked over its shoulder at Survivor and gave a hand signal inquiring for price. Survivor spelled out 500 in quick succession. He turned back to the Amy. We are wanting 500 clams. Do you approve? She felt it over again in her hands, illuminating the runes. How many of these have you sold? You are the first we have attempted to sell to. Amy looked up at him. And how many do you have? This is a test model. Upon success, we were intending to make more. I'll make a deal with you then. You sell me this one for $250, and I tell my friends where I got it. When they come, you sell it to them for $600, and tell them these runes are an ancient blessing promising love and great wealth. The Goadur looked down at the necklace and back at her face. That is not what the runes say. We are only asking 500. Gabriel laughed. Buddy, do you not want 600? Yes, he said. That is more, and we would be grateful for it, but we do not want to stress relations through lying to the owner species of this station. Amy brought up 250 clams on her holowatch. She then looked at the Goadur. This will not be any issue. Seriously. The Goadur raised its hand. Let me go talk to my commander. He turned and floated over to Survivor and explained the situation. Amy and Gabriel shared a small chuckle. Gabriel looked down at her hand. It is pretty cool. Amy nodded. Yeah, let's see if he takes the deal. The Goadur hovered back over. You will send your friends to us to buy some at the higher price? She nodded. Yeah, of course, I said I would. And this will not cause an incident? No, this is basic haggling. Humans do it all the time, second nature to us. Then we agree, he said. She smiled and flicked over the appropriate amount of blockchain clams. Thank you. She undid the clasp and put it on her chest. It gave off a light glow and darkened as it settled on her. She touched it again. It's warm. Yes, I told you it has thermal properties. It turned back toward Survivor and lifted a hand up as it floated away. Thank you, human female. She returned the wave. Welcome. On the other side of the station in the Infinigan habitat, Spitzlittle woke up on her shimmerstone shaking. She had the dream again, the three preserver eyes staring out from the darkness. The nightmare consisted of her choking, the eyes watching as it took notes of her demise. She could feel it still, but it was tied to something bigger, darker, something terrifying on the edge of her mind. She got up and exited her room. Her hands trembled, wanting to hold tools. She walked through the alley between the houses and up to the breather docks. She pulled off a readied set and put it on her head. She stepped into the airlock and prepared to head to her lab near the ship bay. She worked for several hours, tinkering with items from the salvage bin. She was making something, but its purpose was still outside her conscious thought. She kept thinking about the data from the rift, playing it over and over. Little bits of insight appeared to her as she tore apart alien components and worked them into her contraption. Several more hours, it was complete. She wasn't sure exactly how it was going to work, but she grasped the basics of what she had done. The power flow test seemed functional, and it produced a sensor output. She tinkered around with the setting controls and it all clicked. She needed to mount it on the beacon. She needed Crackletooth's help. Blast from the dark, I gotta talk to that waste hole again. She reached up and touched her comm piece. Husband, I made something for you. Crackletooth replied immediately. You haven't made anything for me in decacycles. Are you in heat again? No, you imbecile. Even if I was, we have enough daughters. I do not want any more. Then why did you make me something? I am confused. You are weird. You're lucky you make such cool things. That is why I called. I made something. And it needs to go on your rift beacon. You know what it does? He asked. Pretty sure. I think it will give us better viewing of inside the rift. So a scanner? Pretty sure. It clicked in my back mind with some of the readings I took on my last trip. I bet it has something to do with that. She said. All right, I'll help you. One other thing. Spitzlittle started. We need to have a gathering. Crackletooth huffed. A gathering? Everyone is busy. What's the concern? I'm having concerns. I want to talk to everyone, see what the gathering concludes. I will start the assembly call then, he said. Start the food orders. Thank you. I will go down to the rows and start buying. See you for supper then. See you for supper, she replied. Spitzlittle had a cluster of SFP cater the food. The ship bay meeting hall was full of Infinigan, all starting to fill their shells with food. Young ones ran around throwing food at each other's mouths. The jumped and flipped, catching the morsels in the air. Spitzlittle made her shell with heapings of human food and several baked squishy, and then walked over to the main circle of adults. She eased herself onto a rock beside Crackletooth and looked around. Pouchcheek and Crunch sat next to their son Crunchcheek, who had arrived yesterday on leave from Kawaru. Near them were her daughters. Heckletooth sat on a taller rock. Other assorted clan leaders sat listening and eating. Crackletooth patted her on the back with his two left hands. Go on. You called this gathering. She filled her food pouch and started her deep chewing, then stood up. She spoke, addressing everyone. I've had nightmares for a while now. I thought they were residual disturbances from being cloned and imprinted with my old memories, but I do not think that is the case. She touched her satchel and flicked through her files. She selected the one with the readings from the rift and threw it out to the communal folder. I had an episode, you all know the feeling. I had it while in travel and modified some scans. She started a hologram of a graph of the central rift. Notice the inner sheath. The sphere hidden deep in the lights of the center. Something is there, and it is resting on the other side of the skin of reality from this station. I think whatever that is affecting my sleep. She flicked through the data. Here, this line. It is a transmission, and I think it is emanating from that central sheath. I do not know what it's saying or sending, but I believe it is affecting me. She looked around at the families. Is anyone else feeling anything? Several hands raised up from the crowd. Spitzlittle bobbed her ears. That's what I thought. Something is trying to talk to us, and my second mind helped me make something for us to listen with. She looked at Crackletooth, and then back up to meet everyone's faces. I also wanted to talk to you all about the humans. Many shifted their eyes and tilted their heads. She continued, The Sam is our reason for even existing. We owe him that. The others, however, they are obnoxious. I do not know how I feel about them. What do you all think? Crunch stood. I have worked with some on the Posar. They are all different. They do not operate on a similarity like we do. They pack bond, but they do not social like us. You are right, and they are rude, but I have found that each has a unique strength just as we do. Pouchcheek touched her husband, and he sat down. She rose to replace him. She looked around at the families. They are alone. Our Sam, he was alone, and I thought it sad he was without family. But now I see that they are all alone, even when in packs. They do not read a quarter of what we can on each other. They shield their thoughts from each other so much. I shared an office on Kawaru for 8 cycles with a human, and I had to vocalize repeatedly to get a true feeling from her. Another Infinigan on the second row stood up. I helped fix an Oblivion ship. The pilot double-talked constantly. She would say one thing about her fellow pilot, but I could see through and tell she had romance feelings for the male. They are twisted in their own minds. I do not think they know that they even do it. Heckletooth stood, and everyone turned and looked. She started speaking, and all listened intently. I have spent much time with their AI orbit. It is my passion with the crystals. I have learned much of the humans, and I think we can ally with many of these that have come, but each should be judged in turn. What you all say is true. I have found our Sam to be one of the more noble of their kind, and worthy of our admiration. Sam aligns more on our passions, and as such was easier for us to bond with. He has our focus, our love of machines and shares. But as said, each human is different. They are many species in one people. I have gotten angry at some that tried to help me and wanted to bite them. Earbobs went through the crowd. I did not bite them. Rather, I listened. She looked around the crowd. Do you know what I found? She paused. I found that each has a passion, and each has a different way to talk. They are puzzles, and we just lucked out that Sam was an easy puzzle for us to solve. I ask each of you, if you have to work with one of the other humans, treat them as such. Figure them out and learn what their great passion is, and do as Sam did for us. Give them the tools to think about it, to talk about it, and to build their passions. We do this, and they will grow as we have. Spitzlittle stood up and bobbed her ears. Wisely spoken, daughter. Thank you, mother. Spitzlittle walked over and locked hands and touched foreheads with her. Our people are spread out and growing again. The crowd spoke in unison. The young are fed and shining. The gathering continued through another half-cycle. Everyone ate till their stomachs were filled, and the families gathered in their clusters and fell asleep. Spitzlittle and Crackletooth went up to her lab. He walked around her sensor array. I understand it. It is in line with your analysis. It will be fun to see what you find next. She stared at him. Curse you, male, you were right. He raised his ears. How so? She walked over and grabbed him, pinning his arms. She leaned in and bit on his ears. His ears bobbed into the gentle bite. Oh, yeah, I know you. He turned in her arms and bit her back.